So Asteroid City, released in 2023. It's got a pretty strong cast, directed by Wes Anderson. He wrote the screenplay, but the story he also had some help from Roman Coppola. The cast, it's a very impressive cast. Bryan Cranston plays the host. Edward Norton is Conrad Earp. Jason Schwartzman plays R.G. Steinbeck. Jake Ryan Woodrow. Scarlett Johansson is Midge Campbell. Rupert Friend plays Montana. Jeffrey Wright is in here at General Gibson. The Zalas, Tom Hanks appears. Hope Davis. Let's run down Matt Dillon turns up in a minor role. These are all minor roles now. Jarvis Cocker from Pulp, he's chips in, as does Steve Carell. Tilda Swinton is Dr. Hickenlooper. Jeff Goldblum is the alien. That's Adrian Brody. Rita Wilson. William Dafoe is Salzburg Keitel. And Christian Bale plays the newsboy. Or is that Christian Bate? I'm not quite sure. Margot Robbie is an actress stroke wife. And a very, very big cast. Not much detail to give you really before I start watching it. One critic described it, this Anderson project, as the most incandescently beautiful of all the movies so far. When Anderson working with his cinematographer Robert Yeoman, and also emotional impact is substantial, which is quite different from what Anderson usually releases, and it's set in black and white, a documentary style, set in 1955 in the United States, and it's obviously it's got something to do with a Western meteor crash site hosting a sort of space camp which becomes known as Asteroid City. Now, you know, as the movie starts, of course, it all comes flooding back Wes Anderson's style, which is sort of where he encapsulates your viewing in sort of boxes, really, where you, like if you were looking at a comic, and the comic lays out in rectangles the story, and that's how it comes across to me anyway. It's all perfect, it's all sort of drawn in with very vivid colours, and we start out by hearing from the host, who generally describes what we're about to see, and then we move on to the play authored by Edward Norton, and then the story unfolds and we get into Act 1 where we're on this train and it's moving out to the desert area, and we arrive at this town which one assumes is near, or possibly is, Asteroid City, and we get introduced to the characters early on. They get 5 seconds each. It's like running through the cast at the end, but we get little picture snaps of them, and then we're with a family who go into a diner. They've arrived in this town. It's right out in the middle of the desert, possibly Nevada. It's set in 1955, and then whilst the family are sitting there, mother, father and the 3 girls, chattering about what they want to eat. There's an almighty explosion, and we see an image of a mushroom following an explosion by an atomic device, atomic bomb, and this sort of, it just conjures up all those other images of all, some of which I recall is an Isle of Dogs with all the Japanese trying to get to grips with the vast population of dogs. And then there's the film about Norton who's on a disappears or something, and I really need to watch these movies again because they're absolutely brilliant. I'm going to try and watch this one anyway. I'm going to read a bit more of this review. The film opens in lustrous black and white and square Academy ratio, taking the form of a TV documentary, 1955 in the US. Before screening the film, the Fox documentary is narrated by the Natalie suited Bryan Cranston, who tells the story of the theatrical Asteroid City, a Carter Hurst work. Carter Hurst played by Edward Norton, which is presented here by Anderson and company in gorgeous colour and widescreen and cinematic brio. Anderson's new movie is the most ingeniously conceived and seamlessly executed of his anthology nesting multi-narratives. Earth's play is set at a remote western meteor crash site hosting a sort of space camp. The places and settings for all Anderson's work beautifully geologically perfect. The orange of the desert, the cloudless blue sky creates the visual equivalent of eating a creamsicle on a sunny day, as well as in terms of building layout and design. None of the details are extraneous. The space camp, this small not quite town, is a gathering of several scholastically gifted teens whose futuristic inventions, one of them literally a disintegration ray, are going to be stolen by the US government, here presenting its most benign face by Jeffrey Wright's General Gibson. The brilliant kids all break their own drama. Woodrow, played by Ryan, is the oldest son of war photographer Archie Steenback, played by Schwartzman, who, as a competition for a scholarship begins, hasn't yet told the teen or his three young daughters that their mother is 3 weeks dead. Woodrow, nicknamed Brainiac by his beloved mum, finds an immediate, of course initially awkward affinity with fellow junior stargazer Dinah, played by Grace Edwards, the daughter of Midge Campbell, played by Scarlett Johansson, a movie star whose dedication to the craft is matched by her free-flowing melancholy. Other stargazers have different issues. Ricky Cho, played by Ethan Josh Lee, has a healthy skepticism of authority. Clifford Kellogg, played by Ariston Meehan, a compulsion to challenge adults to dare him to pull ill-advised stunts, and the ease with which Anderson packs characters and their odd traits into a never-flagging narrative, and the movie keeps fizzing and buzzing throughout its 105-minute running time. It's absolutely remarkable. So we're having to return to Asteroid City. Let's just briefly summarise it. and it's about a play about a junior stargazer convention in a retro-futuristic version of 1955, but it becomes made to textual because the making of the play is the subject of a television documentary. It's Anderson's homage to popular memory and mythology about extraterrestrials and UFOs witnessed in the southern southwestern desert in close proximity to the atomic test sites after World War II. And a moment about we're at the point where they've arrived in the city. Jason Schwartzman, who's a war photojournalist, and he's the father of Woodrow. And I'm trying to follow this Tom Hanks is Angie's father-in-law, who dislikes him. Orgy's father-in-law, who dislikes him, and Orgy contacts Stanley after he encounters problems with his car, which is being looked over by Matt Dillon, who's the mechanic in this futuristic repair shop. He plays Walter Geronimo, and Audrey has 3 daughters. The daughters. It's awfully difficult to follow this, it has to be said. This is an extremely difficult film to follow. It's sort of like it's got a collection of snapshots of individuals' lives in this desert sort of futuristic city. And I guess there is a sort of connectivity between them, but it's awfully difficult to see the links, apart from the fact that they're all, I guess, trapped in this area through various reasons. The characters all seem to be very much like cartoon characters who have very little to do with current reality, but they're sort of like a comic book, really, of conversations, of situations, which are individual in their way, but I'm failing at this point to understand the link. There was a bizarre sort of presentation to sort of young scientists by a senior military man played by Jeffrey Wright earlier, suggesting that the venue has a sort of educational draw. We've witnessed a nuclear bomb going off, but they appear to be not at risk of radiation. It's described as a comic drama, but I haven't laughed yet. It's
extremely difficult to get inside the director's head on this one, but his previous stuff has been also of this ilk. So at this stage I'm 30 minutes in with over an hour to go, so we'll see how it unfolds.
Okay, so we've got two versions. In a retro-futuristic version of the 1950s television program, which is in black and white, we have the creation and production of the play is depicted in widescreen and colour, whereas the television special is seen in black and white. Now, some of the characters are the same in each, but some of them are the characters are the same, but the actors playing them are different. For example, but it's really quite. Let's see. Scarlett Johansson is Midge Campbell, a famous but disillusioned actress, and Dina's mother, Mercedes Ford, who is the actress playing Campbell. Well, that's completely confused me. Orgy Steamboat, a war photographer, and Woodrow's father, James Hall, the actor playing Steinbeck. Alright, so those two are in both versions, the play and the colour TV. Others are only in the colour version, and of course Cranston's only in introducing the television series in black and white. And then we've got Rupert Friend is Montana, a singing cowboy interested in June, and Asquith Eden plays Montana. Maya Hawke is June Douglas, a young school teacher who's interested in Montana, and Douglas is played by Ukraine Show. So there's a number of characters in both the TV black and white series and the retro colour film. That's where as it goes on. Yeah. The young teenagers then play this game where they have to say a real person, and then they go round and have to remember what the previous people have said and add one on. And I played this game as a sort of memory game to sharpen one's tools with English. I used it sort of with my grandmother went to Paris and took with her, you know, and then we went through things that she took, and it's a real good sharpener. So I'm familiar with this part of the film. As I struggled to get to grips with this sort of strange script, I read another review, a very damning one, about Asteroid City, and here it is. Asteroid City blends romance, sci-fi, western and comedy in an offbeat manner, but stumbles on a few metaphysical questions: death, human existence, the extraterrestrial, that leaves us adrift. The bits and pieces of this uninspired chamber feel are choppily assembled, with clumsy dialogue serving as a makeshift bridge for passionless scenes fabricated with an enforced mood and drowsy vibes. Here everything is artificial, including the scenario. Anderson and his regular collaborator, the screenwriter Roman Coppola, worked together for the 5th time, drawing inspiration from films by Robert Altman, John Sturges and Paul Newman. The year's 55 days after the death of his wife, the confident photojournalist Audrey Steenbeck, played by Jason Schwartzman, begins a romance with the unenthusiastic actress Mitch Campbell, played by Scarlett Johansson. He doesn't get along with his father-in-law, Stanley Zack, played by Hanks, and is proud of his shy little genius son, Woodrow, played by Jack Ryan, who's a junior Stargazer winner. All these and other characters, along with all their moves, are products of the mind of Conrad Earp, played by Edward Norton, a renowned playwright. With a convoluted script, fatuous characters, and obtuse comedic tones trailing off into alien invasion nonsense, no dream cast could succeed in turning this fabrication into a hip and funny cinematic experience. Both the surface and essence are phony, but worse than that is the movie's inability to offer any insight about anything. Asteroid City is equal parts tackiness and boredom. As a result, I urge you to avoid being quarantined by this desert of ideas. So now you know. There's a bizarre scene where Wright makes a sort of statement on behalf of the US military in the desert with regard to finding any extraterrestrial life forms, and it's typical of, it's probably a sort of parody of how they would react in the event of this happening, and questions that they would need to ask and answer with regard to the life form, to exclude the possibility that it's being allied with the so-called US's enemies on Earth, meaning, for example, Russia, China, and various other countries. It's typical of the fact that the Americans just can't trust anybody, and because they can't trust anybody, they decide that the best way to avoid any possible damage to themselves is to control everybody else. And it's a very sort of neat little piece of politics that Wes Anderson's thrown into the pile here, but acknowledging how bizarre and crazy the whole thought process is. Anderson then gives an alternative perspective with regard to what an alien might be, rather than this potential threat to national security. He, through what I suspect was possibly a preacher, is described in sort of very ordinary terms as a sort of vulnerable creature that needs a friend. It's amusing, to say the least, but total fiction. This view by Monten, the singing cowboy, follows a young teacher who's trying to teach the children about the planets, and the children are all speculating that the alien might have come from any of these planets, and it's all a rather sort of bizarre spontaneous chat about the impact of an alien who they've yet to see having arrived near that desert area. A word of advice about this movie. I think viewers might benefit from, rather than trying to lock it all together to get following the plot type of feel that we usually do with movies. I think it's important that one focuses on particular scenes and understands the bizarreness of them, and reflects on the acting prowess. There's a tremendous ensemble cast in this, with familiar actors and actresses, with outstanding filmographies, and they basically make cameo appearances in this film, aside from the 3 or 4 main characters. And I'd like to refer to a scene where the playwright, played by Edward Norton, he's trying to grapple with his script, and this is the TV interpretation, and he's basically wanting some inspiration, and we then get launched into a scene which involves William Dafoe's character. William Dafoe is basically, I'm just trying to find the link here, it's coming. He's Salzburg Keitel, and an extremely dedicated acting teacher, and he suggests a dream scene, and we see the collection of children in this movie, and he then delivers, Defoe that is, instructions towards that group of children to start to act out a dream that they're experiencing, and there, of course, the dreams are all varied, and I found this scene quite interesting to follow. Following the atomic bomb test, the military have imposed a situation where all those present in Asteroid City are unable to leave. It's become sort of open prison as such, and this is highlighted with a scene when Johansson's character and Stanley, played by Hanks, are discussing about why they are being detained. That's another sort of interesting aspect to the script. And prior to this, we also had an impromptu hoedown involving the singing cowboy and the teacher in front of children, which was quite amusing. Typical sort of country and western style hoedown type songs, but it was quite refreshing, albeit it only lasted about a minute before we cut to another scene. And this type of delivery by Anderson is complex, to say the least, and I'm already getting a feeling that I will need to return to this movie frequently, because it's like a huge jigsaw puzzle, and you actually follow certain scenes, and you put those scenes as pieces of jigsaws on the sort of table, and you then got to try and link them all together in some semblance of order. And this is, I think, Wes Anderson's challenge to his viewers, so to speak.
as we move towards the final scenes, the quarantine, incarceration, call it what you want, is lifted by the military with regard to this alien hunt and the atomic bomb testing. But we then have a scene from the TV series in black and white with Adrian Brody and this character, who basically declares to him that he can't understand the play at all, and Brody's response is, yes, but just keep telling the story, which about sums up this movie really. The scenes keep coming onto screen, thrust in at you, and you're still struggling to lock all these scenes together, but you need to focus on that particular scene and understand that particular scene. So I guess Anderson is suggesting that, you know, to complete this jigsaw you require frequent viewings, which is probably a clever ploy, but it probably also has a lot to do with why a number of the critics really were not happy with this movie at all, because if we're considering that cinema should at least be trying to entertain, is that wrapped around the notion that you need to watch it repeatedly like a TV series to be entertained? What about the concept about going to the cinema and seeing a piece of work in all its cinematic glory, and at the end of it come out feeling complete, feeling that you've understood the vast majority of it, and you have got through to the conclusion, the final scenes, with a grasp of what was going on? Because that certainly can't be the case with this Asteroid City. There's the scene where we return to the characters and the dream, and they start to chant, and it reminds me of The Wall and dystopian future. They're chanting, "You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep." And it's struck me as very much a sort of a dip that Anderson's making into the future, the control of one's minds. And that certainly seems evident in real life at the moment. Remember, maybe this is his subtle message in this movie, this futuristic picture of a dystopian future, connecting this idea of aliens and all these characters incarcerated through mind control. What do you think? We then get the epilogue. This is sequenced throughout the movies, Act 1, Act 2, etc., etc. We're back to Asteroid City, and Stanley is with his grandchildren, and they're going through this symbolic event with regard to his daughter's death, and but by burying her ashes in the ground, but least that's what I'm saying, and it perhaps is a message from Anderson that we need to maintain sanity. We need to get back to our own family system, our own small community, and nourish ourselves with those close relationships rather than getting consumed in this wider sort of dystopian type of horror, because that is beyond our control, whereas an appreciation of those close to our life, those in our inner circle, is the way we nourish ourselves through life. I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud. What do you think?